Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. This is the Tailgate Committee, your new favorite college football show. My name's Andy Hopper. I'm joined by Tom Scavetta and the old boy Noah Dibler. We are here chopping it up, talking college football. We are right in the middle of the college football playoff. It is semifinal week. So we are going to get into those games, those matchups. One surprising matchup for sure. We're going to recap the quarterfinals in the wild couple days that it was, and look at how we got here. We're going to talk about the format of the college football playoff and a certain trend that we have been seeing the past couple years, as well as get into the transfer portal, because I don't think we could really call ourselves a college football show if we don't talk about the portal at least once. So like I said, welcome in to the Tailgate Committee. Make sure you throw us a follow on Twitter at the Tailgate.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram at the Tailgate Committee. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, like this video, comment, tell us your takes, or tell us how much you hate our takes or laugh in our face when our takes are wrong, because we certainly got some wrong last week. Let's just jump right into that quarterfinal recap, boys. So New Year's Eve, Miami and Ohio State got us started off. And by God, the Hurricanes did it, boys. They take out Ohio State 24-14. Tom, I want to start with you on this one. You said on the show last week, Ohio State by 2 touchdowns. What the hell happened? How was Miami able to be so disruptive to Ohio State's offense?
Yeah, man. Thank you for letting me drown first before the old boy. I think we all are going to get it a little bit tonight. It's pretty simple. There's a few things. There was one thing I mentioned on last week's show, if you guys remember, if Miami is able to disrupt the line of scrimmage, and that they were able to do. I mean, they collected 5 sacks. They stopped the run. The Buckeyes only had 45 rushing yards the whole game. So all in all, they were able to unleash their pass rush, their venom, Akeem Messador and Ruben Bain. They shut the Buckeyes out in the first half, as I said, and Miami was disciplined. They had 0 penalties the entire game. That's unheard of, especially against a team like an Ohio State, and they forced 2 OSU turnovers. Julian Sayin uncharacteristically threw 2 picks in this game, and they said, you know what? We're focused more on stopping the run than we are Jeremiah Smith. They know Jeremiah Smith is going to get his yards anyway. They were more concerned about not just necessarily stacking the box, but disguising their coverage. I think Mario Cristobal deserves a ton of credit. I mean, Keontae Scott had that amazing pick 6. He's going to be a future pro. Jacoby Thomas was solid. And I feel like Miami's recipe to success, guys, in advancing far into the CFP is just make sure Carson Beck does not lose you the game. And that they've succeeded at very well, because Carson Beck went a whopping 19 for 26 with 138 passing yards and 1 touchdown pass. I'm very impressed with those numbers. Those are numbers you'd really expect to see your quarterback making in a CFP quarterfinal. Those are excellent numbers for an FCS quarterback. And that's obviously what you have right now. And I'm enamored how he got to Georgia as long as he did. They're clearly running through Mark Fletcher in that running game, 19 rushes for 90 yards. He also had a receiving score. But you know what? All joking aside, I'll give Beck some credit. He managed the game very well. The game was won in the line of scrimmage, and Miami continues to prove people wrong. They deserve to advance. And I'll be honest, guys, Ryan Day, that national championship really did save him last year. He is not a top 5 head coach in college football. He never was. He never will be. He is carried by talent, and he cracked. He cracked. And he will enter the year 2026 on the hot seat.
Especially for a program like Ohio State, they've always got championship expectations. They get upset here, add it to the list of teams with first round buys that find themselves going home early. Noah, a take you had last week was, Miami is going to need more from Carson Beck and these receivers to move on. And, I believe it was that the win against Texas A&M was not even 5% on Carson Beck. Can we get a percentage on Carson Beck in this win for Miami? Because technically his number, he threw for more yards. He still had a touchdown. But, Mark Fletcher, 90 yards on 19 carries. It was still the Mark Fletcher show on offense for them. And this defense proving that they might be the best in the country.
Yeah, I'd give, well, first of all, to answer your Beck question, I'd probably give him about maybe 20% or something like that. Because I will say this, and I think Tom described it well. Beck wasn't the reason they won the game, but he wasn't the reason that they lost the game either. He didn't turn the ball over. He threw a touchdown pass, completed 19 of 26, like Tom said. Even had 23 yards on the ground. So, obviously, that's not what you want from an elite quarterback by any means, but I think it was a all right game manager type performance, especially going against, what we've been saying all year, guys, the best defense in the country, or at least I think it was the best defense in the country, because I'd have to say, guys, the best defense in the country right now is Miami. What they've done these last 2 games, guys, is unreal. Like Tom said, to force 2 interceptions on Julian Sayin, who has been historically accurate, consistent, proficient with the football this year, not making major mistakes, rushing the passer, 3.5 tackles for loss between Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor, excuse me. They had great games as well. 7 tackles for loss and 5 sacks as a unit as well. And obviously the Keontae Scott pick 6 totally changed the momentum of the game. And Jacoby Thomas got one as well. They just had a perfect game as a unit. They shut Ohio State down running the ball as well. They only averaged 1.9 yards per carry outside of Bo Jackson, who, had some good runs. They weren't able to do much consistently because Julian Sayin was running for his life the entire game. So they had to try and pass back into it. And like I said, he made 2 major mistakes with the interceptions. Jeremiah Smith did his thing, but to the defense's credit, he was basically the only one. Carnell Tate, who's been great this year, in my opinion, 3 catches for 37 yards. And on the other side, like you said, Andy, I almost said Tom Fletcher. Mark Fletcher, 19 carries for 90 yards. He did a good job, carrying the load offensively for them, especially in a game where they weren't exactly passing it up and down the field. But like I said, they were playing elite defense. So this is a team, guys, that just keeps proving people wrong. I'm gonna be honest, when they had that loss in the game where Beck threw 4 interceptions, I thought they were done. I thought they were done for the year.
Oh, yeah.
But give them credit. They've gone on a really good run since then. They've had 2, pretty unexpected upsets, I would say, against A&M and especially against OSU now. And you don't fluke into a college football semifinal very often. I don't think this is a fluke at all. They've beaten 2 teams they're underdogs against. Their defense is playing elite football at the right time. But I will say this: my question mark for this team would still be Carson Beck. I know I like to rag on him every now and then, but you will need more at some point. I think if you're going to win a title, right? It's not very often you win a national championship with game manager performances over and over again. When UGA won the titles back-to-back years, Stetson Bennett had those games in the playoffs where he would step up at the biggest moments, right? Even if he wasn't the most athletic and the most talented. And that's what I would like to see from Carson Beck, because this was a game Miami was always in control, right? They're always ahead. What can this Miami team do, when they're down 10 or something like that early in the game and they have to come back? That is what I would be interested to see. But for right now, they look amazing. And they definitely deserve to win this game. They dominated the line of scrimmage from start to finish.
Absolutely, and that's kind of been the recipe for them so far in this Cinderella run, I guess you could say, the 10 seed all the way to the semifinals. It's, dominate the line of scrimmage, not just defensively, but offensively as well. Run the ball, win the time of possession, and I think that could be a key this week against Ole Miss. Keep the ball out of this explosive offense's hands. But even if it is, I think you got to trust your defense and what they've been able to do against two pretty good offenses the first 2 weeks of the playoff. We'll go to the next game. It was Oregon and Texas Tech. Wow. I will say this, an unexpected performance from the Red Raiders. The offense was just abysmal. And I think Oregon, obviously 23-0, they shut them out. Their offense was able to put up points, but it's not like their offense was terrific. They were held to field goals, multiple times. At a halftime, this was a 6-0 game. I think they only ended up finding the end zone twice, and then they scored 9 points on 3 field goals. So I feel like if you're Texas Tech, you think your defense kind of did their job. But then you have Baron Morton, 18 for 32, 137 yards and 2 interceptions. I think there was a couple of fumbles thrown in there as well. They were 0 for 3 on third down, 6 for 16. I'm sorry, 0 for 3 on fourth down, 6 for 16 on third down. And just, four turnovers, only 215 total yards. Tom, I'll start with you on this one. Surprise result here for you, and how disappointing is this for Texas A&M?
Yeah, look, I was definitely surprised, guys. This was not the ideal result. Tech only had 78 rushing yards the entire game, and they only held the ball for 22 minutes. So averaging 2.5 yards per carry in a CFP quarterfinal is not going to cut it. And Baron Morton, quite frankly, forgot how to play football. He's throwing screens in the ground in front of defenders. A lot of double coverage throws in this game. He had 2 picks and lost the fumble. Cam Dickey lost the fumble. Not ideal for him. And then the receivers. Caleb Douglas, no catches. Reggie Virgil, limited to 2 for 29, and Coy Eakin, just 1 catch. So credit the Ducks, man. The Ducks defense had 4 sacks and forced 4 turnovers. Tatum Tuioti had 2 sacks. Dylan Diamond, safety, had 12 tackles. Bryce Bob, linebacker, that read a lot of plays too, and Brandon Finney had those 2 interceptions. So I think what happened was the Red Raiders just were unable to run the football, and it limited their success on offense as a whole, where on the flip, the Ducks really couldn't run the ball either. They only had 64 rushing yards. They averaged less yards per carry at 1.5. But the difference there was the Red Raiders, they had a game plan to limit what the Ducks could do on offense on the ground. Dan Lanning counters that and says, yeah, we're just going to throw the ball to 11 different guys. That's basically what he said. Screw you, Joey McGuire. This is what's going to happen there. Dante Moore did not have a bad game. I don't think he had the greatest game. He didn't throw for a touchdown, but they didn't need him to. It was a defensive slugfest early on that turned into for Tech, and defensively, they did what they could. Ben Roberts had a nice pick in this game, which, by the way, I think he's going to be an awesome replacement fill-in for Jacob Rodriguez next season as he departs for the NFL. And, yeah, it's very unfortunate. Tech's going to have to do a lot of work in the offseason up front on that defensive line. They're losing 3 starters that started the season up front. They're losing Rodriguez out Wisniewski, but they'll have Ben Roberts coming back, and offensively, it's a good thing that they have, hopefully, what's an upgraded quarterback last season, because Baron Morton, I could not have been more disappointed in his performance. Noah alluded to this last week. I think Dan Lanning just, quite frankly, outcoached Joe. I went with Tech. I didn't want to jump ship at that juncture. I knew Lanning had the coaching advantage. I knew. I thought for some reason Tech was going to win, and they didn't. This is 2 games in a row, man. You're making me go first, and I'm sitting here talking about pretty much how I'm an idiot. And hopefully I won't be able – I don't think we'll be able to do that for the next 2 games at least.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a surprising result. They stumbled one time all year, and that was a game at Arizona State. But other than that, they really had no issues in the Big 12. It just makes you wonder what the heck happened. And you credit Dan Lanning and you credit Oregon for having a game plan. And I've said it on the show before. You don't think of Oregon as this stalwart defensive team, but that's what they are. I saw this funny tweet that was, back in my day, a Texas Tech Oregon matchup would have been 73-60. Thinking back to the Mike Leach air raid Texas Tech and Chip Kelly 30-second offense at Oregon. So it took some getting used to, these 2 teams in a defensive slugfest. But Noah, you picked the Ducks. You have the Ducks going far in this bracket. What did you think about this performance? I want to give you some credit. Tom and I on the last show kind of talked about maybe some concerns after that second half defensively, giving up 28 points to JMU. They look like they didn't miss a beat and just absolutely shut down the Tech offense.
Yeah, well, we were discussing that last week, guys. I made the point that I wasn't that concerned because I felt that Oregon took their foot off the gas and that they would be ready when the time comes. And I mean, nothing says you're ready than shutting out, well, what were they? Yeah, number 4 in the nation, forcing 2 interceptions on Baron Morton, shutting down, Cameron Dickey as well, only averaged 2.6 yards per carry. Their leading receiver had 72 yards. The next best guy only had 29. They had 4 sacks as a unit, 7 tackles for loss. And I think it just comes down to what I said, which was my main point for picking Oregon, guys, was that Dan Lanning, massive coaching advantage over Joey McGuire. I don't think he's a bad coach, but he's not an elite coach. And Dan Lanning, I think, is getting close to that category. He's definitely a top 5 guy, in my opinion. And I think, last year when they were the number 1 seed and they lost to OSU, right, there were definitely some growing pains there. They weren't a team that people expected to be a number 1 seed, in my opinion. But this year, they're back. They're 13-1. Their only loss is to the best team in the country, Indiana, by 10 points. This is a legit team, guys. And, even a game, Tom mentioned Dante Moore, 234 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. They didn't run the ball particularly well either. Jordan Davison averaged 2.8 yards per carry. Noah Whittington 2.4, although Jordan Davison did score twice on the ground. It was just an elite defensive performance, just like clockwork. Brandon Finney as well. Shout out to this guy, man. 2 interceptions in probably the biggest game of his career. He was great. I think you can say you're a little bit disappointed in Texas Tech. I did think this game would be a little bit closer, but you got to give a lot of credit to Oregon as well, man. They went out there, they executed from start to finish. I'm going to be honest, though, guys, this was a little bit of a boring game. It was just kind of felt like in that 3rd and 4th quarter, so it's like, okay, can we wait for this? Can this game please end? You could give Texas Tech 12 quarters to score, and they're not going to from what we were seeing. But I think Texas Tech is very good, and, to their credit, they at least have a great consolation because I think them getting Sorsby in as a transfer, that was a 10 out of 10 move for them. I really like what I've seen from Sorsby at Cincy. But it's not about consolation prizes right now. It's about put up or shut up, and Texas Tech shut up in this game because they got absolutely dominated. But Oregon, all credit to them. I'm glad I picked them. I'm glad I got one thing right last week because I know I'm going to get it later.
Pat yourself on the back for that one, old boy. Are we going to have a conversation about how Texas Tech getting blown out in the quarterfinal is bad for the playoffs and how, oh man, we gonna keep the Big 12 out now? Come on, guys. Oh, let's talk about another blowout and another team that was very controversial. Indiana belt to ass 38-3 over Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Cignetti did what we thought Signetti was going to do. His facial expressions on the sideline are unmatched. When they cut to him after Bama was trying to draw them off sides, did you guys see that? They immediately cut to him and he was like,
Yeah.
It was perfect. I need to get that picture pulled up. But Fernando Mendoza, 14 for 16, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. Black had 99 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Ty Simpson gets hurt in the game and he exits. They are who we thought they are, fellas. Bama is who we thought they are. Not as good as the Indiana Hoosiers, an absolute wagon. And what, they lost by 35. What's that, the third worst loss all time in playoff history? Where's the conversation about Bama getting blown out in the playoffs? Was this a safety issue in the Rose Bowl, Bud Elliott? Bama being out there? Oh, are you going to cry some more on your show, Josh Pate? Oh, my God. I'm so glad to see they got what they deserved. But Noah, let's talk about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Your takeaway from this beatdown in Pasadena.
When we talked about the Alabama OU game last week, excuse me, I said I thought it was much more about Oklahoma choking than about anything Alabama did. And based off what I saw in this game, I think that's pretty easy to back up now, right? Because they didn't even show up, guys. This was a good old fashioned woodshed, type of game, boat racing, dare I say. Wasn't even a contest. Ty Simpson did get hurt, but I mean, to be fair, coming into this game, he was already banged up with the back injury anyway. So I already had the feeling he wouldn't particularly be a 100%. And look, it's not like when he got injured and Austin Mack came in that this offense started moving the ball any better, really, because they couldn't run the ball, guys. And this has been Alabama's weakness on offense all season. They don't have a number one running back. When I've seen Alabama be amazing, it's because of these running backs that they've had. Guys like Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, T.J. Yeldon, guys like that. Even a few years ago when they had running backs by committee, they would still have 2-3 good guys. Their fourth string running back would be a guy that could be a starter on like 90% of teams, right? They don't have that anymore. So that's why I think this year we've seen a lot of what Ty Simpson has been able to do because, they haven't had that star running back power. They have Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams. I think those are two good players, but you need more than 3 guys to run an offense. So you can't run the football. You can't pass protect. You're going to struggle. And, Indiana's front in this game absolutely dominated. And on the other side, this wasn't a game where Mendoza threw for like 400 yards, right? But 14-16, 12 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no interception. That's a 10 out of 10 game for a quarterfinal. That's all you could ask for a quarterback. He did his job. He didn't have to do a lot because Indiana could run the ball at will. Kalen Black, like you mentioned, Andy, 99 yards, 6.6 yards per carry. He had a touchdown. And Roman Himbia as well. Got to shout out him as well. 89 yards and a touchdown, 4.9 yards per carry. They dominated the line on both sides of the football. Did what they had to do on defense, did what they had to do on offense, and let's call a spade, guys. I hate to say this, but just as of right now, based off what I saw last week, Kurt Signetti is the best coach in all of college football. He has just got it tiled in right now, man. And while other coaches are making dumbass mistakes, like, I don't know, going for it on 4th down on your own 30-yard line in a close game, he just has everything like a well-oiled machine for this Indiana team. And this is a game I saw a lot of people saying, guys, this was an upset alert for Indiana. After what Alabama did last week, I saw a lot of people saying they're back. Indiana hasn't faced a team like this all year. 38-3. I mean, I did pick Indiana to win. I didn't think it would be like that. Clearly the number 1 team in the country at the moment. If they keep playing like this, guys, it's going to be tough to stop them. It really is. But, Miami and Oregon are hot right now. Ole Miss is going on a good run. This is an interesting semifinal, man. But, I mean, if you got to pick a favorite right now, it has to be Indiana without a doubt.
I mean, I think Signetti is such a great coach, and what they've done is recruit a bunch of incredibly experienced guys that understand college football and how it works. Like their offense, Mendoza is 4th year in college football, Hemby 5th, Black and Nowakowski are 6 years. Pat Coogan's been there for 5 years. Mikowski's been there for 5 years. Benson's in his 6th year of college football. Defensively, it's a bunch of guys like that too. Kamara, year 5. Moore's in year 6. Fisher, Jones, all 4-year college players. Tucker, Daly. They are old. They're experienced. They're 23 and 24-year-old dudes out there that know what they're doing. They're taught and they're coached really well. They know what to look for on tape. And, this is what they would do to bad teams last year, right? Is just get out and stomp them. This year, it's what they did to pretty much everybody. It's not 63-10. I'm getting that out of the way before Noah makes some bullshit comment about it. Like his team didn't just get knocked out. Tom, I want to get your thoughts on this one. I know you had a lot to say about Bama making it in. This one had to feel pretty good for you, even though it was Indiana and not Notre Dame kicking their ass.
Just want to remind everybody, too, who Indiana's last loss was to. Little fun fact. Just wanted to throw that out there. But seeing Pat Coogan win the Offensive Player of the Game, that's just awesome. And you know why he won Offensive Player of the Game? These Hoosiers outrushed the Tide 215-23. The fact that Alabama not just got in the field, but got in as a 9. This is the risk you ran by putting Bama in this tournament. This is the risk that the committee took. Other more deserving teams. It's not just Notre Dame. There's other teams too, in my opinion, that deserve to be in over them. That includes a couple other SEC schools. They just happened to find their way into the SEC championship. And I want to congratulate Indiana, winning their first bowl game since 1991. That predates all 3 of our existence. And I think what was so impressive about this game, it's not just the numbers for Mendoza, that he only threw 2 incompletions or that he threw 3 touchdowns. He just looks poised. He looks like I'm controlling what the defense does and not vice versa, right? There's a lot of quarterbacks that inject that fear into you, and he's one of them. Well, I should say there's not many, but out of who's left in the field or who's in the CFP, a lot of them have been good at doing that to their opposition all season long. And they were 9 of 14 on third down. 9 of 14 on third down. That's pretty darn good if you ask me. We've talked about their running game, their receivers, and it's not just Surratt and Cooper. Charlie Becker, just coming out of nowhere. He's been a guy who doesn't get many catches, but when he does, they matter. They matter. And what I mean by that is Indiana is able to call anybody's number at any time of the game and beat you. That's how good of a coach Kurt Cignetti is. It doesn't matter. That next man up mentality, they are there to make plays. They are all about business, and they win football games. They don't care what the outside persona is. They don't care about the 100-plus year history of Indiana football and how unsuccessful they've been. You think they care about that now? You think they cared about it 4 months ago? No. 1 penalty overs, control the ball for 34 minutes. This is the type of game I like to see. And even before the Ty Simpson injury, the Bama play was just not good. Mm-hmm. I will still stand on my 2 feet and say that the Alabama Crimson Tide did not belong in the college football playoff. The only reason why they did put them in is because they made the SEC championship and they were worried about not having them in the field 2 years in a row, in my person. And they, again, what Noah said earlier, they sort of backed in to this round. They backed into this matchup. Oklahoma shot themselves in the foot. This should have been Oklahoma going up against Indiana, not Alabama. Come on. And Andy, you talked about the experience before. This experience is going to get them a national championship. It is. They are the most experienced, the most balanced team left in the field. Nobody's stopping them. Nobody.
Yeah, I'll be hard pressed to see, who can match up with them. I thought this was interesting. So I don't remember who said it, but somebody said Indiana is doing to Alabama what Alabama used to do to everybody, in these playoff situations when they were really at the height. I think you nailed it earlier. I think Sig is the best college coach right now. He's probably about as close to Saban as you're going to get, as far as coaching style wise and philosophy. And all four coaches left are former Saban assistants. I mean, I think that speaks a lot to his coaching tree and what they talk about, the way they talk about him and the way they talked about how much they learned. Dan Lanning said, he was going to take a pay cut to go be a GA at Alabama because I'd be getting my doctorate in football, he said. And, it's very cool to see how many coaches talk about Saban and how highly they talk about him. It's like the NFL guys when they go, talk about working with Belichick. I don't know if I'd get involved with that now, but that's a conversation for another day. But all right, Noah, let's do it. You said last week all the Georgia Bulldogs had to do was show up. And did they forget what time the game was, or what did was the bus late, or what happened?
Well, they showed up in the first half. I thought the first half was good. They were up 21-12, I believe. And then first of all, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to do any sour grapes, right? Ole Miss is a great story. They deserve to win the game because they showed up in the second half, and what they've done this year after the whole Lane Kiffin drama to get Pete Golding in. Hey, I'll hold my hands up, guys. When they said he was the permanent guy, I was like, what the hell are they doing? Because when he was the DC for Alabama, and I know you mentioned this, Andy, some Alabama fans really do not like Pete Golding and what he did as DC, but man, you got to give him credit. The team has bought into what he's doing there, clearly, because they're going on a great run. Trinidad Chambliss was electric in this game. Harrison Wallace, Kawan Lacey, all these guys. I got to give them all the credit in the world. But we're not here to hear me talk about Ole Miss. We're here to hear me bitch and complain about the Georgia Bulldogs, as always. Now, there's a lot to get into. First of all, I want to say this because I've seen some people say this, and I cannot believe people are saying this. Anyone who even 2% blames Gunnar Stockton for this loss is a total moron, in my opinion. Gunnar Stockton was really good this game because the problem was the offensive line, because Stacey Searles, and you guys know I don't say this often, but Stacey Searles should have been fired about 3 years ago because we have 4 to 5 star linemen. Monroe Freeling is a senior who completely whiffs on an easy block. Um, how do you have so much talent on this offensive line and you can't block? I mean, it's just unbelievable. They're running the football down the gate was terrible. The coaching, the play call. Okay, when they had that final first and goal, there was no excuse for Georgia to lose this game. I thought they had it there, and they get a -3 yard run from Chauncey Bowens, and then one of the stupidest play calls I've seen in my life on that third down. It was absolutely atrocious. But I'm not gonna blame Mike Bobo for this because I think for the most part Bobo's actually been good this year. And they did score 34 points. It's not like they went out and scored like 6 points or whatever. Georgia did enough to try and win this game. The problem was they kept fucking up in the biggest moments. And look, I love this guy, but I got to be honest, guys. That fourth down call by Kirby Smart on your own 30-yard line has got to be one of the top 3 stupidest things I've ever seen him do. Other two that come to mind are terribly timed onside kicks. And I think there was a fake punt he had against Alabama in one SEC championship game one year that just didn't work at all. And it's funny, right? Because earlier in that quarter, when they had that fake field goal, or not fake field goal, fake punt to keep that drive going, I was thinking, oh, might have some Kirby brilliance here to where his coaching snatches a win from the
Right.
jaws of defeat, right? And unfortunately, it turned out that it was basically the opposite because, I mean, give them that short field. Ole Miss goes up 34-24, I believe it was at that time. It was always going to be tough to come back. And, to give the offense credit, they did. Right after that drive, they marched down the field, got a touchdown. They got the game-tying field goal, excuse me. And then lo and behold, the defense completely shits the bed. I mean, there's no nice way to say it, guys. I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. How did that game not go to overtime? How do you let a guy get behind you in that situation that late in the game for them to win the game? You get the game winning field goal. I know it was 39-34. It was 37-34. That safety was a total. And by the way, can I just say this? This was the stupidest inning to the game. It took about 15 minutes for these officials to realize, when the game actually ended. It was a
That
total
was
clusterfuck.
nuts.
But I'm not going to make any excuses, guys. Ole Miss showed up in the second half, and Georgia didn't. They got outscored 27-13 for the entire half. That means from when they were up 21-12, they got outscored 27 to what? Or no, it was 34-24. So that would have been 22 to. I'm a Georgia guy. I'm not good at math. 22-3. There you go. That's not acceptable to get outscored 22-3 in a stretch like that in a playoff game. I think Georgia should have won the game, but it doesn't matter because we don't play hypotheticals. It's all about what you do at the biggest moments. Georgia didn't show up, and you have to get Ole Miss credit. I'm not going to trash their program or make excuses or whatever. They deserve to win this game. Georgia did deserve to lose, and they deserve to feel bad about it because they shouldn't have lost, but they did because of coaching mistakes, players not showing up, horrible decisions at the biggest moments, inability to get a stop when they needed, inability to get a stop on third down, inability to not only get the Trinidad Chambliss, but bring him down. There were so many plays where they actually were able to break through, and then he escapes and makes some insane play for a big, deep pass. That happened over and over. Harrison Wallace and Dejon Stripling combined for almost 300 yards receiving. I mean, I got to give credit to the defense, man. They picked a great time of the year to have their worst game of the season. Even Peyton Woodring, who I didn't even know this guy's, but he's actually the most accurate kicker in Georgia history. He's about 5 points, 5% above Blankenship, I believe. Even he missed a field goal in this game, man. No one was safe from making mistakes in this one. Not the great Kirby Smart, not all those 4- and 5-star players, and it's frustrating. But I'm not going to make excuses. They lost, and they deserve to lose. And Ole Miss, they're a great story. There's no doubt about it.
I mean, I think you just ran into Trinidad Chambliss playing absolutely out of his mind. You talked about Georgia got to him. There's multiple plays where this guy's running 20 yards backwards and all in a circle, a loop-de-loop, whatever, and still finding Lacey in the flat or somebody downfield. And, Gunnar Stockton, I tip my cap to him. He made some insane throws while he was getting lit the fuck up by this Ole Miss defense. I was very impressed with his poise to stay in the pocket, deliver the kind of throws he did, knowing he was about to get walloped. Pete Golding gets the win. He outcoached Kirby Smart, and you brought up the fake punt. I thought at the time that was genius. Kirby Smart felt his team and the momentum slipping away, and he took advantage of it at that moment, but it wasn't enough. And, Ole Miss, I think they had that in their mind from that first matchup, right? Everything was right in front of them in that game, and they choked away the second half. I think the first matchup, Chambliss he was like 0 for 10 to start the second half passing. This time around, I think he started 6 for 6 with a couple of touchdowns. He was just surgical in this game and had enough to get it done. Pete Golding now has 2 playoff wins, more than any SEC coach not named Kirby Smart or Nick Saban, which is pretty incredible to think about. Tom, If you can take your Georgia glasses off for a second, we know that's your number 2 team over there. Oh, folks, what did you think about this game and Ole Miss getting this one done?
What did I think? Well, wow, that was totally uncanny, right? Yeah, look, I think you have to give credit to kicker. I can't fucking see. You got to give credit to Ole Miss kicker Lucas Carnero, who hit the game-winning field goal. I mean, this kid can drill the football, and that was a very clutch kick that he made. But what led to that happening is that Ole Miss outscored Georgia 20-10 in the fourth quarter. They outgained them by 130 yards. Trinidad Chambliss is a buzzsaw, regardless of what the current coaching situation is. You have to give Pete Golding credit, and you have to give this Ole Miss offense credit with Trinidad Chambliss. 362 passing yards and 2 touchdown passes. Kawan Lacey did not have his greatest game. I thought Georgia contained him pretty well. Despite the 98 rushing yards, he did lose a fumble and had 22 carries. He had a good game, but not the best game. And then with Gunnar Stockton, I think what Ole Miss's defense did well that they're not getting enough credit for is they limited him on his feet. Gunnar Stockton is a dual threat quarterback, and yes, he had 2 rushing scores, but 13 rushes for 20 yards, that's not Gunnar Stockton like. Usually he's a little bit better than that. I was questioning some of their decisions to give guys the football outside of Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens.
Yes.
And I'm sorry. I love Cash Jones. I love Cash Jones, and you guys know that. He's my favorite Bulldog, now outgoing Bulldog. But, man, he stinks. He stinks. I mean, there's some, assignments that he just blew in this game. I think he's a lot better as a pass catcher, and that's where it ends. He's a solid route runner who can make guys miss an open space, but he's not the type of guy that can sit there and run across a formation and get a chip block for you, or he's not the type of guy that is going to run the football. I mean, they gave him 2 carries in this game. That's too many. I did not like what I saw, and I will say Zachariah Branch is a legit receiver. That guy's got hands made out of glue. The fact that you guys got him this year is awesome. Unfortunately, though, it didn't translate. From a team perspective, Georgia's just 3 of 13 on third down as a team. It was really a stinger because I had a lot invested into Georgia in this college football playoff. I thought they would win the whole thing. I think this taught me what this game taught me is that, A, it's very hard to beat a team twice in the same season, especially within the same conference. And number 2, don't pick a team that ended their season last year in the same stadium, in the same city, and the same round. And it would have been the same day if last year's game was not delayed a day due to the horrible, attack that happened in New Orleans.
Right.
But, Georgia's cursed inside that stadium, man. I don't know what it is. And credit to Joe Judge. Credit to Joe Judge. Honestly, keeping them disciplined on the sideline. Yeah. Good job, Ole Miss. Well deserved. Proving us all wrong.
They did. Ole Miss, I won't lie, I was giddy to see Ole Miss win. I thought it was great. We did get robbed of Carson Beck versus Georgia. It's almost funnier that it's now Carson Beck versus Ole Miss, and Georgia's the one that fucked up and not him.
Okay, Andy. Fuck you too.
Hey, the one team. Raise your hand if your team won a bowl game this year.
Here we go.
One team on the show, but no, it's now been over 1,000 days since Georgia has won a college football playoff game. And
nice.
You got to be reeling right now a little bit, Noah, but I think I'm proud of you. You're taking this loss in stride. You could have lashed out and you didn't. You realized what has happened. Ball. Zachariah Branch is declared for the draft now, by the way. I believe Mel Kiper has him as his number 4 receiver available. So we got Ole Miss. We got Miami going on. Let's talk a little bit about the format really quick, boys, because here's a trend that we have now seen in college football these past 2 years. What is up with these teams and the first round buys? They are now 1-7 in the last 2 years in this format. The only team that received a first round bye that won their quarterfinal matchup was Indiana in the Rose Bowl this year. Noah, I'll start with you because I mean you can give us some examples of maybe what you saw with Georgia this past week. What is going on with these first round buys, and how is it affecting these teams? Is it that extra week of already being off for a month? Like, what do you attribute the lack of success to these teams that earn these buys?
Well, I mean, guys, we've heard this story, this narrative with first round buys forever. I remember 2011, first year I watched the NFL. The Packers went 15-1. Right, they were the number one seed. They had the first round bye, and then who else but the good old New York Giants come in there at 9-7 in their season, right? In what wasn't even a close game. It was an absolute blowout, pretty much. I know Tom will love to be reminded of that one, and it's really tough to say, and I don't want to come out here and complain too much about it because, when you say that after your team is one of those teams you're mentioning that lost, it can easily come down to sour grapes. What I will say is the fact that it's 1-7, excuse me, the last 2 years, that is pretty. It's pretty hard to totally dismiss, in my opinion. As for the solution, I think the solution, I don't think they have to worry about one because I think the solution's already coming. I think when they expand to 16 teams, you're not going to have any need for a first round bye. You should just do a pretty standard, what would it be, 4-round tournament, 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, and so on. I think that's the best way because look, let's just say this. I'm never going to say practice or scrimmages are unimportant, but there is nothing you can do to fully 100% simulate a real football game. And the confidence that you get from winning a first round game, I think could be massive. So I think there is an argument to be had that the time off for these teams could have a negative effect, and like I said, I think we've heard that for years with the NFL. It got so bad that eventually they decided only one team should have a first round bye instead of two. But it's still a narrative that's out there. I still hear it, with the NFL every now and then when a team like that loses. I've also heard it with in MLB, Andy, the wild card format, the round of three or whatever, and then how the teams in the division series lost quite a few of those series against those wild card teams that ended up winning. Of course, I also hate to bring that one up because one of the biggest victims of that is also the Braves, who I'm also a fan of. So again, it sounds like sour grapes if you complain too much. But look, all I'll say is I understand why people are bringing up this point. However, I don't think it's as massive an issue as some people are making because I think when they inevitably, I don't think it's a question whether if it'll happen, but when inevitably when they move to 16 teams, you're not going to have room for a first round bye unless you just cordon off like 5 or 6 weeks for a college football playoff. That's not going to happen. I think they should just make it when they move to 16, just do a normal 1 through 16 seeded tournament. The number one teams or whatever, the top four can have, I don't want to say cupcake, right? But 1 versus 16, you would expect that number one team to have a massive advantage. It can be kind of a tune-up game for them, but that you can't use a rust argument in that case. And then you see what goes from there. But it is an interesting thing. I haven't thought much about it until I saw people mentioning it. But like I said, 1-7 is too hard to entirely dismiss. But we'll see what they do when they expand because I think that's when they'll find a solution for this.
Yeah, it's just really interesting. It's the classic rest versus rust argument, and it's you get that 1 through 4 seed. You're excited, right? Oh, we got the bye. You want to be the number one team, but it almost feels like in this format, the best path is the 5 seed. They get to play the 12. They're in the second round if they win. They're going to play either the 4. Like we saw, I don't know, they're going to play the 4 And we saw this year, Oregon clearly didn't have any problem with Texas Tech. And now, obviously, they have a rematch with Indiana, but they're one game away from the title, and they didn't receive one of those first round byes, and I guess neither did Ole Miss or Miami. So, Tom, what's your thought on this? Is this the bye's a good thing? I mean, I guess I don't know if you can call them a good thing now with this record. I mean, is there anything in your mind that really sticks out that what's kind of causing the lack of success here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing, if you were to keep it at 12 teams, which they won't, but let's say theoretically speaking, they were, and this would never happen due to financial reasons, is that the teams who get a first round bye can host a quarterfinal game on their campus. That would be a solution in the 12-team format, I think. Would that fix everything? No. But there is no advantage to getting a bye in this format other than starting in the quarterfinal. Now, it's more of an issue this year than it was last year, because if you look at last year, the ranking system was a little weird because you had Boise State as 3 and Arizona State as 4 last year, right? Those were two teams that were not even favored in their quarterfinal matchups. We all expected Texas to beat ASU, which they almost didn't, and then Penn State to beat Boise State. Georgia Notre Dame was kind of a coin flip game, at least in my opinion, at that point. And then Ohio State against Oregon was a conference game that, quite frankly, Ohio State was a buzzsaw at that point. So I really see it more this year than I did last year. I thought last year was a bit of a fluke, honestly, but after seeing it this year, and it wasn't just the fact that Texas Tech lost to Oregon. It was the way that they lost to Oregon. But if you're Kurt Signetti, you're looking at this and saying, there is no problem. These teams just didn't show up. Kirby Smart made some idiotic calls. Ryan Day's team was unprepared for Miami. And Texas Tech just didn't show up to the stadium. I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Should we blame the system or should we blame the teams who lost for not showing up? It goes hand in hand. I think it's a combination of both. I do agree with Noah's idea of 16 teams. I'm not 100% sure, though, if they would eliminate the 4 byes right away. Eventually, I think they would. But this is all, right? This is all us just spitballing ideas that we think would work the best. And right now, to answer the question, there is no clear advantage. The only slight advantage that you get is that you don't have to play the first weekend before the holidays. But then again, you could argue and say, no, you would rather play so that you have the momentum, that you have a win on your belt in the CFP going into the next game. So, yeah, it really is half and half. It's half that, and the other half is just not showing up. And Indiana did. The other teams did it.
Yeah, really, I just feel like, you're already getting basically that entire month of December off. And, to add another week to that, it just seems like it's detrimental to these guys. And it's been hard for them to find their rhythm and kind of get back into the swing of it. And, as we see. So hat tip to Indiana for not letting that affect them. All right, let's go on to our next segment because I feel like we've got to talk about this. Since it is portal season, the transfer portal is officially open as of January 2nd, and it is getting wild already. Over 4,000 players have entered the portal already. That's over 30% of the players from active rosters last year. Tom, I'll start with you on this one. I'm going to keep it simple. Is this sustainable for college football?
No. It is not. We are walking a very dangerous tightrope right now. It is almost normal to enter the transfer portal. This is the NFL. And that's why you're seeing guys now in the NFL. It's called the trade block, right? We're seeing a lot of this in college football, and it is not good. But you could also argue that the scheduling is off, right? Isn't it? And it changes every year. So forgive me if I'm slipping here. Isn't it only like a 30-day window at this point or something like that, that they can put their name in?
Yeah. So they changed it this year. So it opens, it's only this one. And then there's one in May. I believe.
Yeah, see, that's crazy. So there's 2 different windows.
So the NCAA transfer portal window for 2026 runs from January 2nd to January 16th, replacing the previous spring window with an extra 5-day period. January 20th through 2024 for players on teams in the college football playoff championship game.
Yeah.
So the main window is now until the 16th. For whoever makes the championship game, their players have 4 days after to enter if they want. A single unified window eliminates the April spring window, making the January period crucial for teams. So so there's not a window in the spring. It's in May. So yeah, I mean it's not even 30 days, Tom. They have 2 weeks.
Timing's terrible because
the season's still going on.
Yeah, the season's still going on. Guys are playing. Let's say a guy in Indiana wants to transfer, God willing. You can't take your name. You have to take your name out now, right? As your team is striving to win a national championship. So I don't like that at all. And then what's going to happen when Ole Miss starts pulling players, or LSU starts pulling players from Ole Miss, like they're already doing coaches? There's pretty much a coaches transfer portal at this point, unofficially, right? We saw what Lane Kiffin's doing. LSU is forcing them to pull the plug now. The running backs coach, the tight ends coach, the wide receivers coach, the analysts, the GA, all gone. Gone. They will not be with that in the CFP semifinal. They're left with Pete Golding, Charlie Weiss Jr., and Joe Judge. That's it. I know we're not the topic is not about coaches, but you see the correlation there. It's a massive problem. And a lot of the top quarterbacks are gone. Brendan Sorsby to Texas Tech. In my opinion, that's one of the best moves so far. Josh Hoover, a guy who has had multiple years of starting experience for TCU and who has played very well, by the way, goes to Indiana. So they already have their Fernando Mendoza replacement. Notre Dame's having issues, guys. They lost out on Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh to Indiana.
Indiana's killing the portal. They got just their offense reloaded.
They took Josh Burnham from us. Joshua Burnham took the Pat Coogan route. He entered the portal yesterday or the day before and commits to Indiana today. And it's a problem when you see elite programs. Obviously, I did the research on my team. I'm not trying to limit it to just my team, guys, but we've lost a total of 7 players to the transfer portal already, 7 notable players. I'm sure there's a couple more that have been added since I made this list, but Kenny Minchie is at Nebraska now. You got some good players out there. You got Utah defensive end John Henry Daly, who had 11.5 sacks this past year, All-American player. Rutgers wide receiver Ian Strong, guy who I like. Got to throw my tight end some love. Tulsa tight end Brody Foley, who Notre Dame has zeroed in on. That's another guy. And there's a guy I really like out of UCF, defensive tackle Horace Lockett, a guy who's been on the block for a couple of years now, a guy who's a really good run stuffer. So I guess those 4 are on my personal wish list for transfers. But I feel like if you're late to the game, you're screwed for a whole year. It's like you're chasing from behind with that second window eliminated and the fact that they do it now. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm just here to analyze it and tell you what I think about it at the end of the day. That's all I could do.
Well, to your point about the Ole Miss coaches, there's talks that, these assistants that they let come over for the quarterfinal, they're talking about them leaving and going back to LSU because it's the way the schedule and the portal set up. The longer they stay at Ole Miss, the longer they're delaying recruiting and getting the roster ready for next year and just putting themselves behind the 8 ball. So, and that's not just LSU wanting them back. It's Ole Miss to a certain. Keith Carter has talked about, kind of agreeing to that at a certain point. You got to move on and they've got to fill out their staff, but God damn, you're going to make it really hard in the middle of a playoff run if you've got 3 coaches or whoever it is. Noah, something you've talked about on the show before is the CFP calendar. And, Tom mentioned how it's wild that, all this is happening and the season is still going on. The current portal opening on January 2nd, is that something you think has to change? You think the portal date has to be moved back? Do you think the season has to be moved up and should be over sooner? Do you have a solution in mind for how this transfer portal stuff could possibly be fixed, or does the calendar changing fix it at all?
Well, when we talked about the Lane Kiffin thing a few weeks ago, that's when I first brought up my issue with the calendar. You know who I just saw yesterday or the day before bring up that the solution to this would be to fix the calendar? Nick Saban. That was what he said, and I'd say Nick Saban knows a thing or two about what's best for college football, but look, man, it's not, it's Pandora's box, okay? People are gonna want a perfect solution. There's not gonna be one. You can't put the genie back in the bottle or back in the lamp, excuse me, after he's already out. You got to find the best mitigating type of solution. And in my opinion, that would be to move the calendar. It doesn't have to be too much, guys. We're talking 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Just move it back a few weeks. After the national championship game is ended, there's no more bowl games to worry about. And then if 8,000 players want to enter the transfer portal or whatever, that's their business. Now, am I saying I like the direction that college football is going with that? No, I think it's, pretty insane. But that's just the way it is, guys. There's nothing that we can really do to fix it. I mean, you just got to deal with it pretty much. I know that might not be a popular answer, but with this NIL era, that's the way it is. And all these kids are and I understand their logic as well, right? Especially those that aren't going to go to the NFL. You got, 4 or 5 years to earn your money, man. You're
Right.
gonna and anyone in that position would take any avenue they could to get as much as they possibly could while they're there. And I understand that. That's why we got guys applying for extra years of eligibility, transferring with big NIL deal. I mean, and Tom just mentioned Sorsby. I heard that, Andy, I think you might have mentioned this
$5
$5 million
million.
for Sorsby. Yeah, I mean that's what NIL is, man, with this transfer portal. And you know, I hate to say it, but it's gotten to the point where, I'll see Georgia sign a 5-star, and I'm just indifferent at this point, guys, because it feels like
Right.
2, 3 months down the line, you see, oh, what's that? They decommitted and went to another team. And that's what happened with a guy like Jared Curtis Devandy. It's just like, it's taken a lot of the joy out of recruitment, in my opinion. And, I'm not saying I'm a fan of the way the transfer portal's gone, but that's the way it is. So, best solution, move it after the season. It's not perfect, but you can't. I don't like guys that are just transferring. Especially when this game's going on. Just wait until after the season is over. I also dislike. I think it happened with UNLV last year, where people just play 4 games or whatever, then you decide, you know what, our team is shit. We're just gonna sit out the rest of the year so we can get a red shirt. I hate stuff like that. But yeah, the biggest issue is the calendar. The other stuff isn't perfect, but it's there to stay. So just move the calendar 3-4 weeks. Just again, end the season, and then if over 3,000 players or whatever want to enter the portal, then people might not like it, but that's the way it is. That's their business. Yeah, I mean, it does suck, but there's not much you can really do besides change the calendar. I don't think, people that are saying, "Oh, we should limit the transfer portal. We should limit NIL." These teams are never going to do that. These players will not agree to it. The teams don't want that either because they love spending money for these big recruits. They love using it for recruiting, transfer portal. It's never going to happen. Yeah, I don't know, man. It sucks, but it is what it is, I guess.
I mean, these teams' NIL budgets are $20 million plus now. Like, they are just throwing money at these kids. And you're a 19 to 22-year-old kid, and somebody says, "Hey, I want to pay you $5 million to come play football." Yeah, you're going to take that. Especially, I mean, I saw something. Sorsby will make more at Texas A&M this year than Shadur Sanders' entire 4-year contract with the Browns. At 4.2 million. So you can't blame these kids. I mean, Illinois has already seen it. David Olano, the all Big Ten kicker, Kicks the game-winning field goal against USC this year, game-winning field goal against Tennessee in the bowl game. 2 days later, he's in the portal. Today, he just committed to Texas A&M, committed to the Aggies, and that deal is reportedly over $1 million, like a 7-figure deal. So you can't blame anybody. And the trouble that I get, it's like, wow, there's 4,500 kids in the portal now, and it's getting to the point where there's going to be more kids in the portal than there are spots to give. So it's like a lot of the times, yes, go find the situation that's best for you, but at the same time, man, you got to realize the grass ain't always greener. And Noah, I thought you brought up another great point. You don't get as excited about the recruits because it's like, well, yeah, we'll develop them here for 2 years and then they'll just leave and they'll go elsewhere. Or like you said with Jared Curtis, they'll be committed for a year and then somebody will swoop in at the last minute and take them away. So it's tough. And I talked about it earlier before on the show in previous weeks about now we're seeing re-signing posts like, yeah, he's re-signed with Texas A&M, re-signed with whoever. It's rough, but Tom kind of talked about his Notre Dame, portal people. Did you give us targets for who you think Notre Dame should go after, Tom?
He did. Yeah, I remember him mentioning it for you guys. Yeah.
Tell me Georgia's targets. Or is it a position? Do you have a player in mind, Noah, or what do they need to do to reload?
I haven't looked too deep into specific players just yet. I'd give a few positions though. Number one, offensive line. I mean, pretty simple after what I saw in that Ole Miss game. I think it's the same old story. They need more offensive line depth. I think they need to fix the coaching as well, but more options could never hurt. Number two, I'd say a tight end. Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky are running out of eligibility, and they're not exactly – I like those guys, but they're not what I would call elite guys. So I think another option there would help too. Maybe another quarterback. I'm not saying it's a massive need because I do really like Gunner. They also have Ryan Puglisi, but I mean, if they want to get an option – problem with that is it'd have to be a guy that doesn't want to start, and that's not very common, I would say. And then maybe some defensive line help. More defensive line help never hurts a team, in my opinion. Depth is always good as well. Maybe after what I just saw, guys, they could get more defense in general. But I guess I'll go defensive line more specifically.
Yeah, I think Illinois needs some help on the D-line. We have saw, Kurt Neal entered the portal. Tommy Wad, I don't even know how to say his last name, entered the portal, but he'll be going to his 5th school in 5 years. So that one kind of, doesn't shock you. But, I mean, that's the reality. We got TJ Finley applying for his 7th year, looking for his 7th school. I will give him a little bit of a pass because he was at Tulane for like a semester, and they took some other guys, and he left. Trinidad Chambliss is applied for a 6th year, which I think he got, and he's going to go back to Ole Miss. But yeah, I just don't love that you're seeing 4 schools in 4 years, 5 schools, 3 schools, and I'm all about making it the best for you. But man, at what point is it just like, man, this is too much? But yeah, I'd like Illinois to go get somebody on the D line. We got Caton Hauser, a quarterback from ECU. He's going to be our starter. Next year, we picked up Jake Renfro from Wisconsin on the O line, which I'm really excited about that. Matthew Bailey has announced he's coming back at safety next year. That's just about as big as any portal addition we could get. So we're losing some guys. Caleb Patterson into the portal. Cole Rusk at tight ends going to go elsewhere. I mentioned Olano. Ethan Hampton is looking for somewhere else where he can get an opportunity to start at quarterback for his last year. So it's going to look a little bit different in Champaign next year, but hopefully the Illini can get, to that Georgia Notre Dame level of not really, rebuilding, but reloading year after year. So we would be remiss if we didn't mention the transfer portal, but those are some things to look out for Notre Dame, Georgia, and Illinois. Some of the top players in the portal I'll mention just briefly. Brennan Sorsby, obviously, he's the #1 rated player in the portal. He's going to Texas Tech. from Cincinnati. Cam Coleman is a highly touted receiver from Auburn that looks to command a lot of money. Sam Leavitt, it's Kentucky's been thrown into the mix. LSU now thrown into the mix. Drew Mestemaker and just about everybody from North Texas are following Morris to Oklahoma State. I think Coy Parrish, safety for Minnesota, could do some big things wherever he finds his self at. I think Miami is a big one there. Nick Marsh to Indiana, I think, was a big get for them. Byron Brown, I'll be interested to see where he ends up. Rocco Becht is following Matt Campbell to Penn State. I think we all saw that one coming, but some big names are still available in the portal. Travion Wisner from Texas, not the best year for him, but he is going to FSU. Dylan Raiola is still available. DJ Lagway, I saw, was on a visit at Florida State this week. Bryce Underwood not entering the portal, coming back to Michigan. A little surprising there, but some fun names to watch out for. But let's do this, boys. Let's get into our preview of the college football playoff semifinals. And let's start with our first game, Thursday night, 6:30 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Carson Beck, what the heck, against Trinidad, Chambliss, and Ole Miss. Number 10, Miami, against the Rebels in the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. Noah, we'll start with you on this one. Give me your take on this game. Does the Miami Cinderella run continue?
Well, 2 Cinderella runs. It's the battle of who's the better Cinderella, pretty much. What Ole Miss has done with Pete Golding is amazing, and what this Miami defense is doing is amazing. I think it's going to come down to 2 things, guys. Number one, this battle between the Miami defense and the Ole Miss offense. Ole Miss has been electric, as we just mentioned, Trinidad Chambliss. But Miami has the perfect tools to try and contain something like that. That is a hellacious pass rush. Better than the Georgia one, in my opinion, because, like I said earlier, Georgia was able to break through, but not quite bring them down. Miami has the guys to break through and bring a guy down because their front is absolutely elite. Their defense is hot at the right time. My concern for them, of course, as I mentioned, is the other factor I'm going to mention, which is Carson Beck against this Ole Miss defense. He is not going to be able to throw for 190 yards or whatever, 1 touchdown, no interception, and it'd be good enough. He's going to have to go out there and sling it around, make some big plays in the passing game. They're going to have to run the football well to have a chance in this game. Now, oh man, this is a close game. However, I don't know, guys. My gut feeling, and I hate to say this because I've been rooting against this team all season long. My gut feeling is the old adage, defense wins championships, right? And this Miami defense is playing elite ball at the right time. They just took out Ohio State like it was nothing. They forced Julian Sayin, one of the most efficient quarterbacks all year, into 2 turnovers, a pick 6, dominating the line of scrimmage that Ohio State has won basically all season long. If they can break through and get some pass rush on Chambliss, I think that'll help them as well. Also, another thing the Miami defense did, shut down the running game. If they can contain Kawan Lacey, I think that's another big advantage for them. So, I hate to say it, guys. Carson Beck is making the national championship game as a starting quarterback with the Miami Hurricanes. They will win this game 30-20.
30-20 win for the Hurricanes is a prediction from the old boy. Miami is favored currently, I believe, by 3. Let me see if that line is still good. Yeah, the line via DraftKings, Miami -3, over under of 51.5. Tom, does the Carson Beck show roll on, or does Trinidad Chambliss and Pete Golding stop the Hurricanes in their tracks?
Yeah, look, there was a time last year that I thought Carson Beck was the best quarterback in college football. And unfortunately for him, he's fallen off a massive cliff. And LSU is dealing with a lot of adversity this game. Charlie Weiss Jr. will stay and lead the team through at least the semifinal game. Joe Judge is also staying, but several assistants have been pulled. The running backs coach, tight ends coach, receivers coach, an analyst, and a GA. But one person who is not getting pulled is Trinidad Chambliss. 21 touchdown passes, 8 rushing. He was a buzzsaw in the game against Georgia. Kawan Lacey, Noah mentioned, 23 touchdowns on the year, nearly 1,500 yards. But the matchup I'm really looking at is Harrison Wallace III against Miami cornerback Keontae Scott. This guy, for a corner, has 5 sacks, 2 pick sixes, both of them pick sixes, by the way, and a couple forced fumbles on the season. He is a massive matchup nightmare. So I don't know if Wallace is going to be much of a factor in this game. I'm looking more at Dazon Stribling, Deuce Alexander, and Daquan Wright to kind of take that step, because I think Keontae Scott ultimately wins that matchup against Harrison Wallace III. So, yeah, I think Miami's defense is a problem. You got Akeem Mesidor, 10.5 sacks. That leads the team. Ruben Bain with 8.5, and 4 of those have come in the CFP, by the way. He only had 4.5 in the regular season. So, oh, shit, time to raise my draft stock, and that's exactly what he's doing. I like what Miami brings to the table on offense, too. The receivers, Malachi Toney, freshman phenom, over 1,000 yards and 94 catches. C.J. Daniels, a really good taller receiver that they have, and Keelan Marion as well is not a bad number 3. And there's 2 stats that stick out to me with Miami, right? It's their 46 sacks, and it's their plus 12 turnover ratio. Carson Beck has done a good job taking care of the football in the CFP. Why has Miami been able to advance? Well, Beck is completing 74% of his passes, and he has 0 turnovers in the CFP. Beck, whether you like him or not, he is a smart quarterback more often than not. He usually makes the right read and the right decision. Unfortunately, when he doesn't, it's usually a viral moment. That's what's so funny about Carson Beck. He's kind of like that Jekyll and Hyde quarterback, as Noah knows very well. It's which Carson Beck are we going to get in this game? That's why we say Carson Beck, what the heck? And he's thrown under 150 passing yards in each playoff game, and they've still won. Mark Fletcher is a beast. I really like what I see from him. I also like Shamar Brown. This is a guy who's used more in goal line situations. So Ole Miss linebackers TJ Daugherty and Suntarine Perkins will have to stop the run if they have a chance in this game, because the way Carson Beck and that Miami offense succeeds is if they run the football well enough, they're able to set Beck up for success with a more open playbook. If you narrow Miami's playbook offensively, that's where Beck has a tendency to struggle. Wow, that was a mouthful. So hopefully for Ole Miss, Pete Golding is able to keep them in this game. These teams have only met 3 times in history. They have not played since 1951. Little fun historical fact there. I'm going the other way. I'm rebelling up. I'm riding the Chambliss Kool-Aid. I like what I see right now. We got to continue the narrative that the ACC is bad. I also just think Ole Miss is the better football team as a whole. The talent on the field, I think, is second to none. I like Ole Miss to win this game. I know Miami was last favored by 3.5. I like them to win it by a field goal again.
Ole Miss by a field goal. I'll jump on the Rebel train with you. I think Trinidad Chambliss is playing just about as well as anybody in the country right now. I think he's going to have to do it again against this defense. But I think, Miami, what they're going to want to do, right, I think is what they've done all tournament is run the ball, pound the rock, control the time of possession, and don't turn the ball over, keep it out of this offense's hands. What we've seen with this Ole Miss offense is they can seemingly score at will. It does not take them very long to move the ball downfield. Now, can they do that against this Ruben Bain-led defensive line? How much pressure are they going to be able to get to Chambliss? Are we going to see him use his legs and make some incredible plays like we did against Georgia? I don't know, but, Ole Miss is an underdog. I like him. Give me the Rebels in this one. I think either way, though, you're getting a very, very cool story to go get their asses kicked by Indiana in the championship game. But let's go to Indiana and Oregon. at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. The Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl is your second semifinal. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. Number 5, Oregon, and number 1, Indiana. A Big Ten team will be represented in the college football national championship, but which one will it be?
Yeah, look, Kurt Signetti versus Dan Lanning is like a coaching movie. These teams met before, and now they're here for the encore. Indiana won that game at Oregon back in October because they contained the running game. They limited the Ducks to just 81 rushing yards, and they forced 2 Dante Moore interceptions. The Hoosiers also had 6 sacks in that game, by the way. That's been their bread and butter this year. Run the football, stop the run, pressure the quarterback, and therefore that causes turnovers. Fernando Mendoza takes great care of the football. The Hoosiers have a team. This is the first key stat. Plus 18 turnover ratio this season. Again, plus 18. That is monumental. I don't care who your opponents are. Your football team is doing something right if you do that consistently. And to do that consistently throughout the course of a 4-month-long season. It is astronomically good. And their identity is on the ground with Roman Hemby, 1,000-yard runner, and Kalen Black, who's just not too far behind with 900 yards and 8 scores. Kobe Martin's not too bad. They have like an Earth, Wind, and Fire collection. Little throwback there. And it's crazy, right? When teams have 3 guys who could really run the ball hard, you think, all right, well, they're not the best throwing team. They have guys. I mean, Omar Cooper Jr., 12 scores. Elijah Surratt, 13 scores. Surratt is a baller. He's going to be a matchup nightmare for, that Oregon secondary. Brandon Finney and Dylan Theinman will have their hands full. So on defense, I think if Oregon is going to slow down Fernando Mendoza and that Indiana offense, expect, Tatum Tuioti to get to the quarterback a couple of times, 9.5 bags on the season. Matayo Uiagalelei with 6 sacks as well. So that's another guy that I really like. Now, on run defense, Oregon does have some talent there. Amori Washington is a good run stuffer up the middle. Bryce Botcher can command at that second level. He has 125 stops on the year. So Oregon does have talent on this. It's going to be tough to contain Indiana, right? And by containing Indiana, you want to keep them to about under 120 yards. If you can keep them to under 120 rushing yards, you have a chance to win this football game. Now on the flip, right, when Indiana's on defense and Oregon's on offense, I think Dante Moore needs to make clutch winning plays, right? When Oregon has won their games this year, it's been more of them just out-coaching the other team and them running the ball efficiently than Dante Moore slinging the football down the field and saying, hey, I'm that dude, right? We want to see more of that. You're in the CFP semifinal. He's not a bad quarterback. I think he's good. I just don't know if he's that elite-level guy that can get you a championship. I feel like he's been carried a little bit by Noah Whittington and Jordan Davison. Every time they get inside the red zone, it's Jordan Davison finishing the drive. It's that Oregon offensive line pushing back the defense. They also have 3 running backs they could go to at their disposal. However, when they face this team, these linebackers, Elijah Hardy, Aiden Fisher, Isaiah Jones, they struggled. And the interior, the teeth of that defensive line, you got to go up against Stephen Daly and Tyreek Tucker for Indiana. And the one other matchup I'm looking at is Malik Benson for Oregon going up against Lewis Moore for Indiana. 6 interceptions on the year. That leads the team. It's going to be a very, very enticing matchup. And then for the Ducks, that second leading receiver, Kenyon Shadiq with 8 touchdowns at tight end going up against Elijah Hardy and Aiden Fisher in the passing game. Look for those 2 matchups to play a factor. I love Dan Lanning. I think he's a great young coach, but I'm going with the experience here with Kurt Signetti in Indiana. I just think they're too much of a high-powered offense, and they're balanced. They're balanced on both sides of the football. Oregon is too, but not to the extent of Indiana. They've accumulated such a good veteran roster in very little time. The Hoosiers find a way to win and cover that 4-point spread.
Hoosiers cover is the pick from Noah. I'm sorry, from Tom. I'm thinking about kicking it to Noah right now, so that's why I said his name. So Tom likes the Hoosiers. Noah, you have been high on Oregon throughout this process. What do they have to do to, I guess, not only hang with Indiana, but beat Indiana?
What do they have to do to beat Indiana? Show up to the stadium, of course. Dan Lanning, my GOAT, former UGA DC, man. He knows what he's all about. But Kurt Sinetti does as well, man. And in all seriousness, guys, this is going to be a great game, I think, between two elite coaches, two elite defenses as well. Big advantage for me, however, for Indiana, and Tom kind of keyed on this with Dante Moore, is at quarterback. I think Mendoza definitely has a big advantage there. Both offensive lines, I think, are solid. Both running back rooms are solid. This is a tough game, man. But you know what? A few weeks ago, what did I say? I had Oregon going to the national championship game. And what did that involve back then? It involved me picking them to beat Indiana. And Indiana was very impressive against Alabama, no doubt, but we cannot understate what Oregon did against Texas Tech, man. That was a team that has been dominant all season long, had a dominant defense. They were still able to win the game because of strong defense and making plays when they had to. And I think that's what they will have to do in this game. They're not going to beat Indiana, head to head by playing their own game. You got to get out ahead early, and you got to hope your defense can hold on. Now, I'm not going to say this is a pick that I'm 100% locked in on, but I am going to pick Oregon to win the game. I think Dan Lanning is him, even though Kurt Sinetti, as I said, I think is the best coach in college football right now. But I've been impressed with the run Oregon has gone on since they did lose that first game to Indiana. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to pull out the cliche tired quote as well. It's hard to beat the same team twice in 1 year, especially when it's a team as good as Oregon. Give me the Ducks. They're going to the national championship game, and they're going to win it as well. I'll take next week off, boys. I'll take next week off. I don't need to make a pick. Oregon's winning.
Oregon taking it all, the pick from the old boy. That's a great point, though. It is hard to beat the same team twice. Oregon knows what they did wrong in that first matchup, and they have had a ton of time to correct that. To me, Noah, it kind of feels a little similar to Ole Miss and Georgia. It's, Ole Miss was able to look back and see where they went wrong and where they lost in that game and make some adjustments and make sure it didn't happen again. Can Oregon do that against this Indiana team? I think we are in store for two awesome games. I will take the Hoosiers in this one. I hope this comes down to whoever has the ball last. I'm taking Indiana because I picked them for my bracket, so we'll stay in tune with that. But, Thursday the 8th and Friday the 9th, cherish it, folks. Two of the final three college football games of this season. All right, boys. I said we could do this in an hour, and we're going on an hour and a half, so egg on my face. But let's lock it up, and let's get the hell out of here. Noah, let's start with you. What is your lock of the week?
Lock of the week. This is going to be very ironic, guys. Carson Beck, 250-plus yards against Ole Miss.
Oh, I love that. What do you got, Tommy?
Oh, man. For this week, I think I'm going to go Fernando Mendoza will throw at least 2 touchdown passes against Oregon.
2 touchdown passes for Mendoza and 250 yards passing for Carson Beck. Hold on, let me see what the line on that is. 250 yards passing for Carson Beck is plus 120. Indiana, 2 touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns. For Mendoza is minus 130. So that's not a bad number. For both of those. My lock of the week, I'm sorry, Ole Miss money line plus 145 against Miami. I have just guaranteed that the Hurricanes make the national championship game. Wow, what a show, boys. We have one show left. I guess next week's just me and Tom, though. Noah's already said he's taking the show off. He's got his PTO in. But this has been a fun one. Always a pleasure talking ball with the boys. We had our quarterfinals recap. We had the transfer portal discussion, and of course, our preview of the semifinals. For Noah Dibler and Tom Scuetta, my name is Andy Hopper. This is the Tailgate Committee. Make sure you give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram at the Tailgate Committee, or on Twitter at the Tailgate.com, COMM, and subscribe on YouTube. Like this video, tell a friend who tells a friend. Roast us in the comments for our takes. God knows Noah got roasted last week for saying all Georgia needs to do is show up. But you know what? You're for the brand. It's great content, buddy. That's our number one viewed clip so far. So thank you, Noah, for falling on the sword on that one. But Happy New Year to everybody. Our first official show of 2026 is here. We've got a couple more left this season, so don't miss out. Once again, I'm Andy. That's Tom. That's Noah. See you all next week.